In June 2026, millions of eyes are expected to turn toward North America, the first time the World Cup will stretch across 3 nations. Yet amid the global excitement, a surprising reality is emerging. Getting through the gates of US stadiums may not be as straightforward for international fans as it once was. While Vancouver and Mexico City are counting down with stands nearly ready to erupt, some stadiums in the United States face the risk of rows upon rows of empty seats. Not for lack of passion for soccer, but seemingly because new hurdles, from entry procedures to concerns over the fan experience, are making the journey to the US more complicated. This raises a pressing question. Will the 2026 World Cup be the story of 3 nations basking in shared glory? Or will it turn into the main show for Canada and Mexico, with the US relegated to a supporting role on its own home turf? For many, the image of the United States has long been that of an open gateway for global events, a place where, as long as you had a ticket and the passion, you could immerse yourself in the atmosphere of the world's greatest sporting festival. Yet, as the 2026 World Cup draws closer, those doors seem to be narrowing more than ever. A series of changes in entry policies, from extended visa wait times and new fees to outright travel bans for certain countries, are making the tournament look far different from what was first imagined. Visa wait times, already a challenge for many, are now reportedly stretching to unprecedented lengths. Some US consulates report interview wait times of up to 16 months. In some places, the backlog exceeds 300 days, long enough for an entire soccer season to end before an application is processed. The reasons seem to lie in processing backlogs, staff shortages, and increasingly stringent screening measures. For fans who have budgeted and spent a year planning their trip, this is a serious blow to their excitement. As if that weren't enough, starting in October 2025, a new visa integrity fee of $250 per person will apply to most non-immigrant visas, with no exemptions for ordinary tourists. In theory, the fee is refundable if all visa conditions are met and travelers depart the US on time. In reality, the refund process is expected to be so cumbersome and bureaucratic that most will treat it as a non-recoverable expense. For a family of 4, that means at least an extra $1,000 on top of other travel costs, a sum that, in Canada or Mexico, could cover 3 to 4 nights in a mid-range hotel. Adding to the barriers, a travel ban remains in place for citizens of 12 countries, including Iran, whose national team has qualified for the 2026 World Cup, creating a void in the stands that will be hard to fill. While athletes, coaches, and technical staff may receive exemptions, regular fans appear to be shut out entirely. This could mean losing a passionate section of the audience, particularly from football-loving nations or diaspora communities that traditionally add vibrant colours to the tournament. A story from a group of Nigerian supporters illustrates the issue. They purchased tickets as soon as sales opened and planned to combine their World Cup trip with a holiday. But when visa wait times extended beyond a safe threshold, they had no choice but to cancel, losing part or all of their ticket and service deposits. The sense of disappointment and of being left out will likely linger long after the tournament ends. As one person put it, when a stadium ticket becomes meaningless, the issue is no longer about sports, it's about access and trust. From a social perspective, these entry barriers are not just administrative red tape, they reflect a deeper shift in how a nation defines welcoming the world. Over time, this could affect America's image as a global cultural and sporting destination, one where major events should unite, not divide. But the gate barriers are only the opening act. Even for those who clear them, fans and organisers alike may face another challenge, a shock to the wallet driven by deeper changes in trade and tariff policy. The US's new tariff figures seem to evoke memories of the harsh days of the Great Depression. Current rates are reportedly the highest in decades, with certain goods from key markets like Brazil and India facing duties of up to 50%. Notably, these aren't just everyday consumer goods. They include core materials and equipment essential for World Cup preparations. From goalposts and stadium seating to the balls themselves, almost everything appears to carry an extra price tag before reaching the field. The impact is visible in multiple areas. In stadium construction, steel and aluminum used for roof structures and frames are now significantly more expensive, especially when imported from Canada, Europe, or South America. Match equipment also seems affected. Electronic scoreboards, giant LED screens, FIFA standard seating from Europe or Asia, and turf maintenance technology. Even items with more commercial value, team jerseys, official match balls, scarves, and souvenirs are facing higher costs. Add to that decorative materials and event sound systems, often sourced from foreign suppliers. To put it into perspective, consider a mid to large size stadium with a capacity of around 40,000 seats. According to various studies, the total cost of building such a venue can range from several tens of millions to hundreds of millions of US dollars. Suppose the budget for seating and amenities amounts to about $120 million, with structural materials such as steel, frames, beams, and fittings typically accounting for around 15% of construction costs. That would mean roughly $18 million is spent on these basic materials. If the cost of steel and aluminum were to rise by 50% due to import tariffs and other fees, the additional expense for this single category alone would be around $9 million. This figure represents nearly a 7 to 8% increase in the stadium's overall budget compared to the original estimate, enough to force organizers to reconsider certain community programs, cut back on volunteer benefits, or scale down decorations and lower the quality of some features. The result is a risk to both timelines and budgets. With customs clearance slowed and costs climbing, many orders are delayed. Organizers who planned logistics years in advance are now forced to consider cutting or scaling back community events, reducing volunteer benefits, and even shrinking the size or quality of certain features to save money. This ripple effect reaches far beyond the pitch. Hotels, restaurants, and tourism services, key pillars of the World Cup experience, are also being drawn into the cost spiral. As imported kitchen equipment, furniture, linens, or cooling systems get pricier, these costs often trickle directly into room rates, meal prices, or even the cost of a single cup of coffee on match day. For fans, this means an overall pricier experience, even for those who bought their tickets early. Local reports suggest this is not uncommon. In New Jersey, one restaurant had planned to expand its kitchen and add an outdoor dining area to welcome World Cup guests. But the project has been put on indefinite hold as the cost of imported steel and industrial kitchen equipment climbed more than 30% above projections. The owner said that if the situation persists, it will be hard to seize the business opportunities of the World Cup, even with the tournament happening right outside their door. Numbers that once existed only on a tariff sheet are now translating into pressure on every stadium seat and every meal served to fans. This raises the question: can a global tournament retain its full vibrancy when the very elements that create its festive atmosphere, from infrastructure to community engagement, are scaled back under the weight of rising costs? And perhaps more importantly, cost is only half the story. The other half lies with the fans themselves, many of whom may think twice before the ball ever starts rolling. You could picture the scene just a few months before kickoff. In Toronto, Montreal, or Calgary, groups of friends draped in the colours of their favourite teams stroll the streets, tickets in hand like passports to the greatest sporting festival on earth. Smiles, hugs, and promises to meet in the stands seem to paint a lively, joyful picture. Yet when those tickets are placed next to a spreadsheet of the full trip's costs, the expressions on many faces appear to change. The initial excitement seems replaced by careful calculations. Is this plan still realistic? Travel costs at most US host cities seem to be climbing week by week. In some host cities, hotel rates have already risen even before the first ball is kicked. According to many in the tourism industry, part of the reason may lie in the higher cost of importing furniture, kitchen equipment, and other essentials compared to just a few years ago. When restaurants have to pay more for ingredients, especially dishes requiring beef, seafood, or imported spices, menus are adjusted and price tags grow heavier. Airfares have not escaped this spiral either. Visa restrictions have reduced the number of direct international flights to the US, leading to a supply crunch that funnels demand into a few available routes. The result? Ticket prices soar, while some airlines remain cautious about adding new routes, fearing that international passenger numbers might not be high enough to cover operating costs. For many families, transportation alone swallows a large chunk of the budget, forcing them to weigh every other expense more carefully. Even the most iconic and supposedly affordable World Cup items aren't immune. An official scarf, once about $35 in 2018, could now top $60, not including sales tax and shipping fees. Rising production costs, partly due to tariffs on fabric, printing processes, and international logistics, seem to have pushed souvenir prices to a point where many fans think twice before buying. The story of one Toronto family of four might be a perfect example. They had been excitedly planning to travel to New York for a group stage match, picturing the moment their son would stand in his team jersey singing the national anthem alongside tens of thousands of fans. But when they added up airfare, hotels, meals, match tickets and souvenirs, the total came to nearly double their original budget. After many nights of deliberation, they cancelled the trip and bought tickets for a match in Vancouver instead, where overall costs were nearly half, and more importantly, no complicated visa process was required. The emotions left behind for many are far from trivial. For those who had waited for this moment since the US was announced as host, the feeling of being stopped at the gate is hard to shake. Instead of a chance to immerse themselves in a global celebration, the 2026 World Cup in the US has, for them, turned into a complex financial equation full of risks. There are also fears that the electric, multicultural atmosphere that defines major tournaments will lose some of its vibrancy if financial and visa barriers remain in place. And the question lingers: can a sporting event of global stature still hold its full meaning if only those who can clear both financial and bureaucratic hurdles get to be there? As more fans choose to stay home or head to stadiums in Canada and Mexico, where the path to the stands seems far less daunting, the economic benefits and allure of the World Cup may end up scattering in ways no one ever anticipated. While the US wrestles with visa hurdles and tariff-related issues, Canada and Mexico are quietly racking up wins in the eyes of FIFA, sponsors, and international fans. The contrast is striking. In these two countries, stadiums are brightly lit and packed. Entry procedures are quick and straightforward. The very advantages many once assumed the US would have, now serving as potent draws across its borders. In Canada, a strategy of early and steady preparation seems to be paying off. 13 matches are scheduled, expected to contribute roughly $2 billion to GDP and create or sustain more than 24,000 jobs nationwide. Infrastructure at the host venues appears nearly ready. BC Place in Vancouver, with its 54,000 seat-covered stadium, meets FIFA standards. Toronto has expanded its capacity to over 45,000 seats, finishing ahead of schedule. Add to this a friendly visa policy, with processing times of just a few weeks, especially convenient for visitors from major football markets. And it's easy to see why international fans feel more secure choosing Canada, with predictable costs and lower risks. Meanwhile, Mexico offers a different but equally compelling story, backed by a rich history of hosting. The Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, venue for the opening matches of the 1970 and 1986 World Cups, remains a vibrant symbol of global football. Its stadiums are not only technically ready, but are embedded in a lively cultural setting, with reasonable living costs and pleasant weather, creating a complete fan experience. A short-term visa exemption for many countries in the Americas and Europe also makes Mexico a more accessible destination. Interestingly, sponsor money also appears to be shifting. Emirates Airlines is reportedly moving millions in advertising budgets from US venues to Canada and Mexico. Visa, a brand synonymous with global sports events, is concentrating its activation zones in Toronto and Mexico City rather than risking low attendance at certain US stadiums. The motivation seems clear. Concerns over reduced US crowds due to visa barriers, high costs, and uncertainty. From a broader perspective, this is not just about sports. When a rival next door is playing a smoother game and drawing bigger crowds, missing scoring opportunities can be costly. Canada and Mexico don't need to host the entire tournament to reap the rewards. They simply need to capitalize on the gaps the US leaves behind, boosting their image and economic benefits. If this continues, they may even be awarded more matches, especially if US conditions fail to improve before FIFA makes its final decisions. And that's when a bigger question arises. Will FIFA uphold its principle of global accessibility, or will it settle for a World Cup with rows of empty seats on American soil? This could prove to be one of the greatest tests for both the sport's most powerful governing body and for the host nations themselves. It seems that what many people are talking about right now isn't just the plays on the pitch, but also the negotiations and decisions taking place behind the scenes. FIFA's principle has long been clear. The host nation must ensure that anyone who has purchased a ticket can enter the country to attend the match. This is not some decorative clause in the contract, but rather a fundamental commitment to protect the integrity of the tournament, the very thing that earns the trust of fans worldwide. If by March 2026 the United States still hasn't resolved visa barriers, entry costs, or restrictions on certain countries, FIFA has the right to trigger a special clause. Relocate one or more matches to Canada or Mexico with just 90 days' notice. For an event of global scale, such a preparation window would be extremely tight, putting pressure on FIFA while leaving the host nation scrambling. History has seen this happen before. In 1986, Colombia lost its hosting rights due to failing to meet infrastructure and security requirements. Mexico, with only 2 years to prepare, still managed to deliver one of the most memorable World Cups in history. The lesson here is that FIFA is willing to make decisive moves if it sees a risk to the quality and prestige of the tournament. If a similar scenario plays out, the US could lose not only part of its revenue and tourism benefits, but also the chance to leverage the soft power a World Cup brings, something that can elevate a nation's image in the eyes of millions of fans. Conversely, Canada and Mexico stand to gain substantially. More matches, a surge in spectators and tourism revenue, and a stronger reputation as welcoming, accessible destinations. Beyond technical considerations, there's also pressure from public opinion and politics. According to multiple sources, some international fan groups have launched online campaigns urging FIFA to safeguard the right to attend for all spectators. Several human rights organizations and foreign governments have also sent formal letters expressing concern about fairness and the tournament's global spirit. International media outlets are closely following the story, turning it from a purely sporting issue into a political and social one. The question now is, will FIFA uphold its stated principle of global accessibility, or will it bend to political and economic realities? And if a pivotal decision is made, who will truly benefit? And who will remember this as a missed opportunity? As the pressure mounts, the situation seems poised to spill far beyond the pitch. Its consequences could ripple through the economy, society, and a nation's image, values that take years to build, but sometimes only months to lose. An empty stand at a World Cup can evoke more than just the disappointment of a match without fans. For many, it also signals an economic gap and a void in community life. Unfilled seats mean unbooked tables, vacant hotel rooms, and seasonal jobs that fall silent in what should be a peak period. When international fans are absent, the impact doesn't stop at ticket sales. It seeps into every corner of the local economy. International spectators tend to spend generously. They don't just come for the football. They stay in hotels, enjoy local cuisine, shop, and explore. For host cities, this spending is often critical to offset the costs of staging the event. A drop in foreign visitors can slash tourism tax revenues and other indirect income, straining local budgets. The effect ripples through the entire supply chain. With lower demand for services, suppliers of goods for the event also feel the pinch. A farm supplying fresh produce to restaurants serving World Cup crowds may lose orders. A food processing plant might cut shifts. Likewise, companies providing event equipment, transport services, or cleaning crews may operate at reduced capacity. This impact doesn't just stop at the host city. It can spread across the region, touching industries that seem far removed from football. Small businesses and seasonal workers are often hit the hardest. Family-run cafes, local restaurants, and souvenir shops that once anticipated a surge in customers may close earlier than planned. Service staff, security guards, tour guides, taxi drivers, and bus operators, all relying on peak season, might see their hours cut or be forced to find other work. Even the hospitality and food sectors could be forced to downsize staff or run below capacity. Beyond economics, this is also a matter of soft power, the cultural influence sports can project. The World Cup has long been a golden opportunity to showcase a country's culture, cuisine, and organizational skills. Without international crowds, this opportunity narrows significantly. Meanwhile, Canada and Mexico seem to be seizing the moment, ramping up their media outreach and building an image of friendliness and accessibility. So, when empty seats become the defining image, what message will the world receive? And can that message be changed with another event? Or will it linger in the global memory for years? The impact of losing international spectators can't simply be measured in economic figures. It must also be counted in terms of image and trust in a host nation. From visa policies to tariff issues and socio-economic effects, the biggest question now might be, can the US turn the tide to keep its full hosting role? Or will it have to cede this historic opportunity to nations that are better prepared? The World Cup has always been seen as a festival of handshakes, street parties, and cultural exchange. If what remains are only empty seats, the question becomes, will the world remember thrilling matches beyond expectations, or an atmosphere missing part of its soul? And perhaps that question is also an invitation for personal reflection. Should FIFA stick to the original schedule? Or should it consider moving some marquee matches to Canada or Mexico to protect the tournament's reputation? Share your thoughts in the comments, because sometimes it's the fans' voices that shape the story of a World Cup. If you find this video useful and want to stay up to date with the latest analysis on tourism, economics, and international policy, hit the subscribe button. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next content. The content in the video is built on public information sources and has the purpose of analyzing, providing information. This is not legal advice, travel advice, or financial recommendations. Any decision to travel or apply for a visa needs to be carefully considered and consulted with information from the official agency before implementation. Thank you for following to the end. See you in the next videos.